Hello, everyone. I'm Tracy, and thank you for being here today. And if you're here for the live chat, thank you so much. I really enjoy the interaction that I've been getting. So if you want to leave a comment or a question, please do that. And today's video is going to be an addition, or not an addition, but sort of a follow-up to Shane's first video about the aircraft that were seen in the sky on the 8th, as well as the military activity that was seen before the incident and during. So if you want to support the channel, you can leave a super chat. That really helps keep the channel going. And if you want to support Shane and his efforts, I will leave his Venmo link in the description, and you can support him that way. So with that, here is Shane. So welcome, Shane, and I'll let you go on with your
All right.
presentation.
Thanks, Tracy. So anyway, I'm going to start with the official story. We're going to cover this from start to finish. And the official story that's made by many in the government, especially General Hara, is that helicopters couldn't fly that day. So we're going to show a couple clips of him making those claims, and then we're going to show otherwise.
Whatever response the state could do, but because of the winds, we couldn't start our helicopters and we couldn't launch them in commitment. We're ready. We're ready to go.
All right, and then here's another.
85 miles per hour. You think about that. That's a mile a minute. And even the fire department that was there on the ground.
And there was others who also made claims that the helicopters could not fly that day as well.
The fire department could not allow choppers to take water from the reservoir because of the 80-mile-per-hour winds.
All right, so we've seen that they made the claims that helicopters couldn't fly. However, there were photos that were taken of that day, and I'm going to show some of these now. This is actually one of the photos that Tracy first posted a few months ago, actually. And we found out that this photo was taken by Roger Curley, who was on a sailboat that was anchored offshore between Lahaina and Ka'anapali. This was the first photo that was actually clear enough to identify the craft as a Navy Seahawk helicopter. And there is a very faint logo on the side that's kind of glared out by the sun, but that will come into play later. Here is another photo that was also taken by Roger Curley. And you can see the helicopter a little bit more clearly. And the logo on the side is a little bit more visible in this photo. Now, I also want to show a couple of other, well, actually, I'm going to get to those here in just a minute. So one thing I want to also cover is that Air Force Brigadier General Pat Ryder held a Pentagon press briefing that reported the deployment of these helicopters. And I'm going to play a video from him now.
This includes liaison support to the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency, support to local law enforcement, and 2 Army National Guard CH-47 Chinook helicopters to support wildfire response operations and search and recovery teams. In addition, the Army's 25th Combat Aviation Brigade has deployed 2 UH-60 Blackhawk helicopters and 1 CH-47 Chinook to Hawaii to assist with firefighting operations. Plus, Navy Helicopter Maritime Strike Squadron 37 sent 2 MH-60R Seahawk helicopters to help the U.S. Coast Guard with search and recovery operations as well.
All right, so that was Pat Ryder talking about the helicopters that were dispatched that day. Now, before I get into the Seahawk military helicopters, I do also want to show another helicopter that was seen on the day of. This is the Coast Guard MH-65 Dolphin that actually was reported to have rescued 17 people that day. And there is a video of this helicopter as well.
Videos, I'm in my garage. It is about 7 p.m. We are hungry. So I am cooking Simon on our grill. It has an outside burner because we don't have any electric. And then I go to the window to just film the smoke again. This time the smoke is a dark black, and I can see a red helicopter just came out of the smoke. So here's the videos. All right, cooking Simon on the grill burner in our garage. In the garage.
All right, so that red helicopter that was seen flying through the smoke was identified as the Coast Guard MH-65 Dolphin, reported had rescued 14 or 17 people. But now I also want to show another picture of a helicopter. This one is the Maui Fire Department helicopter. They have only one helicopter, and it's a very small helicopter. This isn't much larger than the typical news choppers. And the fact that even this helicopter was flying should say that, you know, it's obvious that helicopters could fly that day. This helicopter is not a special helicopter. It does carry a bucket to drop water, but there's nothing really remarkable about this helicopter. And the fact that it was also able to fly in the wind is proof that the story that helicopters couldn't fly in the wind is absolutely false. All right, so now back to Brigadier General Pat Ryder, who reported that the Helicopter Maritime Strike Squadron 37 was dispatched. They sent 2 Seahawk helicopters aboard the USS Wayne E. Meyer. Now, when I looked up the helicopter, the HSM 37 Squadron, I found them on seaforces.org. And HSM 37 Squadron is called the Easy Riders. Now, this is a Navy photo from seaforces.org that shows Easy Riders number 41, which I do believe to be the same helicopter seen over Maui, and I will show how I believe that to be true. One thing to note is the insignia or logo that's on the side. It depicts a man riding on a dolphin, and that is the logo for the HSM 37 Easy Riders. So after I figured out that they were indeed the HSM 37 Easy Riders, I found them on Facebook, where they made a Facebook post about their mission. So the crew of this Seahawk posted about their mission, where they claimed to have searched the coastline for survivors who escaped the wildfires in Lahaina and helped coordinate firefighting efforts by identifying hotspots from the air. Now, based on the configuration of the chopper, that is what they were actually equipped to do. So why would they cover the numbers? Besides the missing numbers, number 31 and 41 on the choppers, another oddity is found that their Facebook post from the days prior, found in their Facebook post from the days prior to the fire, where they packed up early before the end of exercise Talisman Sabre, which claims not just an exercise, and they shipped back to Pearl Harbor to rendezvous with the USS Wayne E. Meyer, just in time to respond as part of the Defense Support of Civil Authorities, which was activated sometime between 3:21 and 6:03 p.m. on August 8th. Now, I'm going to show, this is one of the helicopters that was on the plane to Pearl Harbor. It was clearly marked as number 31. So this one actually does have its number, but the other helicopter that was shipped out to Pearl Harbor does not appear to have its number showing anywhere. However, the red exhaust cover seen in the center of the photo is clearly labeled number 41. All right, so the USS Wayne E. Meyer is the ship that they were dispatched to, and the ship that had responded to the call for the defense support for civil authorities. Now, there were many other ships that were responding. Among them were the Coast Guard cutters Kimball and various other Coast Guard like 40-foot, 45-foot ships. But there were also, so the entire U.S. The entire U.S. Indo-Pacific fleet was activated for the defense support of civil authorities. And I want to go into a little bit about how this works. So normally when there's an emergency, it's up to the state's resources to handle the emergency until they declare like a national and they request support from the federal authorities. So the National Guard is normally under the governor's authority, who was actually acting Lieutenant Governor Sylvia Luke at the time. She was the one who originally declared the emergency for Maui, but that was based on the Kula fire, which I think she declared at like 3:21 p.m. to be an emergency, which now qualified Maui for, the defense support for civil authorities, which would require the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency to request support from the Department of Defense. However, there could be a conflict of interest here because General Hara, who is the director of the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency, would reach out to the Department of Defense liaison at the Department of Defense, who is also General Hara. He fulfills both roles as the Department of Defense adjutant to the Hawaii Emergency Agency, and he is also the director of the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency, which could be a conflict of interest, or unless it's actually standard operating procedure. But it seems like within Hawaii, conflicts of interest are standard operating procedure. So this details how the governor and the state authorities hand over their authority to the national and federal defense, Department of Defense, which is under command of the president. So the command goes from General Hara and the governor over to President Biden at that point. So now I want to show the U.S. Naval Institute map for Hawaii for August 7th. And one thing that is kind of suspicious is that Hawaii is actually not shown on this map. It would be pretty much all the way to the right edge of the map, a little bit farther than halfway up. But what we do see here is the America Amphibious Response Group and the Reagan Carrier Strike Group were actually finishing up from their exercises, Talisman Sabre, and they were heading north back to Japan, which is their home port, at the time that they received the call for help. Now, I want to show the USS America LHA-6 is not actually a carrier. It's an amphibious response vessel that can carry dozens of helicopters and airplanes and up to 1,500 Marines and their equipment. This is possibly the craft that was seen by Tyler Turner on the day before, on August 7th. Now, they don't typically anticipate disaster response, such as the USS Wayne E. Meyer did. They actually were getting ready ahead of time for a potential response to a hurricane disaster, but they actually ended up responding as a result of a fire instead. Now, the USS America does appear to be an aircraft. It looks like an aircraft carrier, and it carries lots of aircraft, and it was within range to do amphibious response at the time for offshore operations. Now, another responder to the call was the USS Ronald Reagan CVN-76, which is ironically called for help. The USS Ronald Reagan, which hosted the wargames exercise Talisman Sabre just in the days prior, was called for help and responded to the incident. Okay, now I'm going to go into exercise Talisman Sabre, which occurred from July 22nd to August 4th of 2023. Talisman Sabre claims to be not just an exercise, as seen here on their main website. For 2 weeks, the Guardians from STARCOM's range and aggressor Delta 11 and their 310th Operations Group U.S. Air Force Reserve Associates put joint warfighters through their paces at Talisman Sabre 23. Talisman Sabre is a biennial large-scale military exercise between Australia and the United States that started in 2005. This was their 10th and largest iteration of the exercise, with more than 30,000 personnel from 13 countries participating, along with the participation of STARCOM and Space Force Maui. This is not the first year that counter space capability is attended, but more realistic and prolific space effects this year were a testament to the value of the newest service, says U.S. Space Force Lieutenant Colonel Garrett Dahlman of the 25th Space Range Squadron Commander. The value of a STARCOM command, dedicated to improving the readiness of space warfighters was especially apparent to Service and Combatant Command and Department of Defense leaders who observed the exercise, Dahlman said. His sentiment was echoed by a senior U.S. Space Force leader who, after observing a demonstration, said, "This is the best space demonstration I've witnessed in my entire career." The real game changer, according to Dahlman, was the practical space electronic attack and protection enabled by the range's active participation. The National Space Test and Training Complex, NSTTC, ensured that space operations in the exercise were conducted responsibly while providing a realistic environment for space warfighters to train in, he said. U.S. Space Force weapons systems operated by the U.S. Air National Guard's 216th Electronic Warfare Squadron, or EWS, conducted jamming missions against target signals representing the opposing forces' critical communications paths. Additionally, joint exercise participants were challenged to use their best electronics protection procedures, while the 527th Space Aggressor Squadron conducted threat representative attacks on friendly systems. Meanwhile, the electronic support crews of the 72nd Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance Squadron assessed electromagnetic spectrum activity and provided real-time intelligence to all. After 11 days of space operations, the combined operations, intelligence, range, and aggressor teams spanning 2 continents executed numerous space engagements. In addition to contested space training, aggressors also provided expert instruction on adversary tactics and recommended countermeasures to a large number of joint and allied service members. U.S. Air Force Major Theron Berry of the 216th EWS acknowledged the vital role of Delta 11 in the space component's success, stating that it would not have been possible to demonstrate the counter communication system and crew capabilities without realistic environments provided by the NSTTC electromagnetic range. Also, during exercise Talisman Sabre on July 28th, 2023, Lockheed Martin won a DoD contract from the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, which is headed by James Trebs. And this is for the High Energy Laser Scaling Initiative, Phase 2. So Phase 1 of the High Energy Laser Scaling Initiative was around 300 kilowatt power production. And then Phase 2 was scheduled to reach 500 kilowatts, which was demonstrated during Talisman Sabre, and the contract for that was awarded on July 28th, 2023. Now, in the near future, they do have plans to scale their lasers to 1,000 kilowatts or 1 megawatt. These platforms are going to be, over the next 18 months, installed on smaller land, air, and space platforms. All right. So now I want to go to a couple of things that I want to follow up with, one of which is about the winds that day. We have a meteorologist who is talking about the wind that day.
Now we want to bring in Chief Meteorologist Mark Finan. Mark, what are the winds like right now in Maui? Because we know the winds were a big problem for fueling this fire early on.
Well, yeah, but it's a typical trade winds that they have. Here are the winds that we have right now. And here's Maui, and here's the airport that you land on when you go into Hawaii. And they have a northeasterly wind of 25. Keep in mind that all the damage that you've been seeing is from Lahaina, which is right here. And then on that side of the island, that's the dry side of the island. So between the airport and Lahaina, there's a mountain. And so then when you get the winds coming down that mountain, it's a very dry north wind. It's kind of like when we get our downslope winds on the west slope of the Sierra sometimes. So that's why you have not only very low humidity here, but also very gusty winds. And so once a fire starts, it can spread very quickly. But yeah, these are typical trade winds from the east and to the northeast. Now, there's been a lot of attribution given to the Hurricane Dora, but I really don't think that this hurricane has had anything to do with the winds here. Here's where the storm is now. It's a powerful hurricane. It's a Category 4 hurricane, but here are where the islands are. And yeah, right now the storm is moving away, and the closest this storm got was 600 miles. So I really don't think this played much in the way of a role at all in the winds, but they have had classic trade winds, and they'll continue with winds like that.
All right. So it looks like the normal trade winds we're seeing all over the rest of Hawaii, and the only place that saw those hurricane-like winds were near the town of Lahaina on the island of Maui. So now we also have another clip that I want to go to that also covers a little bit more about General Hara.
Well, the leader of the state's emergency management agency says the government's response did not contribute to the loss of life. Major General Kenneth Hara sat down in an exclusive interview with HNN Investigates, and he told our Mahealani Richardson that planning for the state's investigation starts today.
Our priority at first was for life and safety, saving lives.
Major General Kenneth Hara, the state's incident commander, met with President Biden Monday in Lahaina's burn zone, the deadliest wildfire in modern U.S. history.
It was like a nuclear detonation.
He says cadaver dogs are now searching for remains in multi-story buildings. They must go meticulously, floor by floor. Hara says a team of investigators contracted by the Attorney General are beginning the planning process Thursday on how they'll conduct a review of the Lahaina disaster.
Everyone keeps saying it was an unprecedented crisis, unprecedented emergency, unprecedented disaster, and that's true.
Do you think the collective response contributed at all to the loss of life?
I don't think so, not at all.
Hara spoke to Hawaii News Now from the state's Emergency Operations Center in Wailuku. He says Maui County is in charge of the disaster response, with the state and federal government assisting.
On Tuesday, August 8th, starting at 4:04 p.m., Maui County issued a series of digital media alerts calling for the immediate evacuation of several subdivisions, including Kulalani, Keleweamauka, and Wahikuli. Do you know why most people were not aware of them?
I cannot answer that.
With power and cell towers down, many say they didn't get those key warnings, adding to criticism about Maui's silent sirens.
Do you think the lack of information contributed to the amount of deaths?
I don't know if it contributed to the amount of deaths. Like I said, that fire moved so rapidly. It's unfortunate, but this thing was blowing so fast, and the predictions of the winds were never anticipated to be that high.
Are you speaking today to defend the county's response?
Not at all, not at all. I'm here to tell the story, so I'm providing facts as I know it, facts that, I'm not trying to protect them, I'm not, trying to cover anyone's okole. I am not.
Reporting from Wailuku, Maui, Mahealani Richardson, Hawaii News Now.
Thank you very much.
All right. So now we've seen that General Hara might have a conflict of interest, being both the Department of Defense adjutant to Hawaii Emergency Management Agency, as well as being the director itself of the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency. And he also claimed that there were no helicopters able to fly that day, but we have just shown that there were helicopters and there were also ships that responded as well. All right, back to you, Tracy.
All right, thank you, Shane. So I hope this helps provide support in that the narrative that there were no aircraft allowed in the skies that day is just simply not true. Now, I wanted to point out why this was such a controversial statement, and that is because there could have been craft that picked up water from either the reservoir or the ocean and helped put the fire out, or there could have been more air support to help rescue people in the water. So that is why it's such a, controversial statement. And it's a very troubling excuse that has been used for this tragedy. So again, if you're here for the premiere and you participated in the live chat, thank you guys so much. We love having that interaction. And again, if you want to support Shane and help him get paid for his hard work, please go to his Venmo link in the description. And I think, is that it? Is that it?
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for being here. And thank you, Shane, so much for your hard work and dedication. And with that, I will say goodbye.